Hi, Year 5s! This week we're learning all about time, so I thought it would be a good little extra review just to go through some time with you. So this is my practice clock, and we don't know what the things are on it yet, so let's review that first. So when you have a clock, it's kind of funny because there's human words associated with it. It's kind of like a personification, which means that parts of people are applied to objects. So let's look at what we call a clock. Now, the circle part with all the numbers, that's called the face of the clock. And the pointy parts are called the hands of a clock. A bit silly, but that's what we call it anyway. So if we take a look at our face on our clock, we have numbers and they go from 1 all the way to 12. So we have 12 red digits. It's been interesting though, because on my practice clock, it also has some blue as a ring outside of the red numbers. And that's because the red numbers represent one thing and the blue numbers represent another thing. But sometimes on most clocks, like the ones that we have in school, you might not always see the blue part. This is just to help you remember. So if I take a look at my hands on the face of my clock, I have 2. And one of them is the red one. And that kind of has to deal with the red numbers then. Then my blue one has to deal with the blue numbers. So my red hand, if I move it around, my red hand, as you see it moving, it's moving a lot slower than the blue hand is. It's also going backwards. I apologize. Let's try that again. There we go. So the red hand is moving a lot slower than the blue hand is. Do you know why that is? If you guessed, because the red hand is the hour hand, then yes, you're correct. Good job. So I want to start right at the top here. So my hour hand is the red one, which you can't see right now, and my minute hand is the blue one, and that moves quicker than the red hand does. So I know my red hand has to deal with my hours, my blue hand has to deal with my minutes. Now, usually 100 is a very important number in maths because that's what we learned about in place value, and that's what's important. We learned about that last week with money. We learned that there's 100 pence in 1 pound. There's not 100 minutes in an hour though. Do you know how many there are? Yeah, there's only 60. And if we take a look, 60 minutes in 1 hour. So we know 100 is an important number, but for time this week, we're going to think about 60 minutes when we're dealing with clocks, because that's a pretty important number. So I have my minute hand. I have 60 minutes in each hour. Let's take a look, because right now our time can either be midnight or noon. So we know it's 12 o'clock because it's both hands are pointing to 12. So we know it's 12 o'clock, but we're not sure if it's 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. Do you know how many hours are in a day? It's 24. So why do you think our clock is divided into only 12 hours? It's because there's 2 sets of 12 in a day. So the first half of 12, first half of 24 is 12, and the first half of 24 is a.m., and then the second half of 24, which is another 12, would be p.m. So let's just pretend we're in a.m. right now. It doesn't tell us on the clock, but we would know if it's morning or afternoon. So I'm saying it's 12 a.m., which means it's midnight, so it's the start of a new day. I'm going to move my clock around, and you tell me when I get to 5 minutes past 12. Look at the ticks. There we go. So, like I said, we don't always have the blue part on our clocks, but we do right now, and it's pointed to a 5, which means it's 5 minutes past 12, past midnight. So it's 12:05 a.m. And if I look at that, that's 5 minutes out of 60. I'm going to keep turning my wheel now so we can see what happens to our hour hand as the minute hand keeps going around the hour. So let's take a look at that. So we can see our blue minute hand moving, and some things might be happening slower, but still happening to our hour hand. I'm going to stop there. If I take a look at this, my minute hand's pointing to 9, but we know it's not 9. We know it's 45 because each section is 5 minutes. So if I'm pointing at this, the minute hand says it's 45 minutes past the hour. But then my red hand almost looks as if it's pointing to 1. Does this mean it's 1:45 a.m.? 12:45 a.m. Well, it has to be 12:45 a.m. because we haven't reached the hour yet. Even though our red hand is pointing really close to 1, it's not past that 1 yet. So it's not 1 o'clock. As soon as you can tell, and I'm going to go back a little bit in time, but you can tell, if we look at our hour hand, it's getting closer to 1 when our minute hand is moving. But until it goes just past the next hour, it's not 1 o'clock yet. So it's still 12 o'clock and then 45 minutes. So it's 12:45 a.m. right now. So I'm going to keep moving it and watch when the hour hand goes past the 1. That's when our minute hand goes past the 60 into the next hour. So let's check that. There we go. Now we are just at 1 o'clock, a little bit past 1 o'clock. We're actually at 1:10 a.m. So that's kind of how our clock works. We have our face, we have our hands, our hour hand or minute hand. We know that hour hand deals with the red numbers that go up by 1. We know our minute hand deals with the minutes which go up by 5s. And each tick obviously represents a minute, but we know it goes up by 5s each time. So we know how that works. And I've talked about AM and PM. If I were to do a different time here, let's just do a random time. There we go. What time is this? You tell me. Yep, it's 4:10. So we would write that as a 4, then a colon, which is 2 dots. You see that before. 10. 4:10. Now, I said it's 4:10. We're not sure if it's AM or PM, but I think I'm going to decide that it's PM. So I'm going to write PM. And that's how you write times for a 12-hour clock. Now, the good thing about England, though, is that you have 12 hours, but you also know how to tell time with 24 hours. And year 5s, I think you have an advantage, because when Miss D was growing up, back home, we don't really use 24-hour time at all. We only use 12-hour time. So when I had to learn how to do 24-hour time, I was very confused. So you're a lot better off than I am already. So keep that in mind. It's okay if you make mistakes. Just remember 60 is a really important number. And of course, 12 plus 12, 24. 24 hours in a day. divided by 2, 12-hour clock. You got this. We can do it. Let's do some together. Let's go through it. So I'm going to make another random time here. Like that one. So we don't think it's 7 because, again, the hour hand isn't past 7. So we know it's 6 something. It's 6:55. It is 6:55. If I were to write that as if it was AM, of course, I would just do 6:55. That's written a bit differently this time, though. Why do you think I put a 0 in front of it when I'm talking about 24-hour time? Yeah, because it's not with our 12-hour clock anymore. Now, we're looking at a 24-hour clock. So it has to have a 0 in front of it. So if it was midnight, instead of writing 12 a.m., what would you write for a 24-hour clock? You tell me out loud. I'm going to write it down. We'll see if you got it right. No peeking. Yay! Good job. Hats for you. There we go. How would I write 12 p.m. for a 24-hour clock? Do you have it? Good job. And this is where it starts to change because I'm not writing AM or PM for my 24-hour side. So now, instead of counting to 12, I have to count to 24. So if I was looking at 1 p.m., what would that look like with a 24-hour clock? You tell me. I'm going to write it down. There we go. So that is how we write 1 o'clock p.m. That's how we write it. So let's think about this. We know there's 24 hours in a day. We know that we would write up to 24 hours on our clock. What is the closest we can get to 24 without going over? Because we know that midnight, when the clock starts over, it's not 24 with 2 zeros at the end, is it? We write it as 0 hours. We write it as 0 minutes. So what's the closest we can get to that? Let's imagine it's nighttime. It's not quite midnight yet, but it's nighttime. What's the closest we can get to this before it switches? I know on a 24-hour clock it's going to be some higher numbers, but for my 12-hour clock, what is that? Yep, 11:59 p.m. So you tell me, what's 11:59 p.m. going to look like when I write it for a 24-hour clock? Go. Good job. So it's 23 hours, 59 minutes. So you are 1 minute away from going up to 0 hours and 0 minutes. You're 1 minute away from a totally new day and your clock restarting. So I think those are some good little helpful hints for you. Let's do a few times together on my practice clock, and you can help me writing them. Remember, we have 12 hours on this clock, but we have 24 hours in a day. Depending on the questions that you're given, you might have to write AM or PM, or you might have to write it using 24-hour time. We have 60 minutes in an hour. And then, we have 60 seconds in a minute, but that's something else. We're dealing with this clock right now. I look at it. Good way is for me to separate into halves and quarters. So if I'm looking at it, half of it would be 30 minutes here. Half of 60 is 30. What's a quarter of 60? Because a quarter of 100 is 25. What's a quarter of 60? Can you tell? Take a good look. It's a quarter of 60. It's 15. So we have to 15, that's a quarter. And then to 30, that's another quarter. Then to 45, that's another quarter. And then back up to the top. So that's our fourth quarter. So that's a little helpful hint for you in case you need to remember that. So I'll give you some times. You tell me what it is, and we'll work through it together. And then you can go off and you can do your work this week. It's going to be amazing, I know. So let's take a look here. I'm going to do a secret time. No peeking. Okay. It's my first one. This is in the evening. What time is it in 12-hour time? It's 9 p.m. Because our minute hand is on 60, our hour hand is on 9. So it's 9 o'clock p.m. So I'm going to write that down. And you think about what it is in 24-hour time while we're writing it. Do you have it yet? You know it's 9 o'clock p.m. You can always count on because it's 9 hours past noon. So I'd have to add 9 to 12 to get my answer in 24-hour time. So I have 12 hours. I need to add 9. So I have 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So you said 2,100 hours. That's what it looks like. Good job. Let me get another time for you. No peeking. Okay. This is in the morning. What time is it? 12 hours time. What time is it in 12-hour time? It's in the morning. Let me think about that. I'm going to go and drink water. Okay, I'm going to write it down and think about that. What time is this? It's AM. The important thing is that you'll have to count the ticks. You get it? 10:33 a.m. That means morning. So if it's 10:33 a.m., how do you write that in 24-hour time? This one's a bit easier. You know this. It's just 10:33. Good job. Let's do one final time that you can tell me about. And then we'll be done. You'll be ready to go. Let me choose a good one. No peeking. Okay. This is in PM. So it's in the afternoon. What time with it. Think about it. We have to take a look at our hour hand. Has it passed something yet? That's my hint. We have to take a look at our minute hand. We have to count the ticks. You tell me. I'm going to write it down. Okay. And while I'm writing, think about 24-hour time, what it would be. So this is PM. So, 4:42 p.m. Did you get it? Okay. So then if it's 4:42 p.m., what would that be in 24-hour time? So you have to count on from 12. I have 12 plus another 4 hours. So 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 16, 42. There we go. Good work. I'm sure you remembered that it's not past 5 yet, so it still has to be 4 something. And you looked at our 40 and you counted on our ticks. 41, 42. So it's 4:42 p.m. or 16:42 in 24-hour time. So that's all about our clocks for you. Now, sometimes year 5 in your work, you might have to draw your own clocks. That's totally fine. You can do it really well. When you're drawing them, you don't have to worry about drawing all the blue lines around it. It's a lot good, especially in year 5, to just kind of automatically know that when I'm thinking about minutes, I don't need to draw the minutes because I know it's always going by 5 minutes for each number. So I think the more you practice it this week, the better you're going to be at remembering that. You're going to be a superstar with it anyway. So I hope this video helps you. I know time can be tricky, so if you need anything, you can always reach out by email or Class Dojo for me, and I will get back to you right away. Miss you a lot. I will see you all very soon. Have a good week, and good luck with everything. Stay safe.